I've just quit my job. I am a fucking madman. I used to romanticize entrepreneurship, the idea of money, time, freedom, doing whatever you want, whenever you want, the idea of being your own boss, because social media told me being an entrepreneur is what the end goal was. Being your own boss. I'm a CEO, I'm self-employed. And I'm sure you've also heard this from your favorite influencer out there, that you're not hitting or, living your true potential if you don't become an entrepreneur. There's one thing I can tell you right now, if you're not going to watch any more of this video, is entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Because the losses that come with entrepreneurship is not just financially. It is time, it's emotion, it is you going through a journey of anxiety, stress, and uncertainty that might change your life forever. Hi, my name is Boris. I'm on my own entrepreneurial journey. I'm 2.5 years in, but I'm going to share with you the lessons, the systems, the frameworks that I've learned along the way from taking massive losses to big wins and being able to build a world-class team that I've completed over 1 billion in transactions. And I'm going to share with you every single thing that I've learned from these amazing people around me that I'm now working with. So when you first started your entrepreneurial journey, it was off what I call pure motivation, pure hustle. But you will get humbled when your runway runs out, or what you think your runway currently is. For some people, when they start their own journey, they look at, it's going to be 6 months before I make some money. When I first started off my journey, I quit my job and I was like, what the hell did I just do? Because this is a new territory that I wasn't experienced in. And at that point, I had a customer that was going to place a 50 grand order. I was going to make about 20 grand gross profit from that order. I calculated it. My runway was going to be about 24 months, if I didn't change my lifestyle, if I had more discipline, I was able to pay all my bills. But then guess what happened? Reality hit me. That customer did not place that 50 grand order, and I had quit my job that I was working 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, great lifestyle, being able to party every single weekend and enjoy myself. But things didn't go out the way I planned. And majority of the time, for a lot of entrepreneurs that take this massive leap, it's just not that way. It's not as straightforward as you think it's going to be. You're not going to go from point A to B in 3 months or overnight like you hear from these testimonials, from these gurus you see on the internet. Because these gurus are telling you the stories of some anomalies. There's some gurus out there that can give you 1,000 testimonials, and that's amazing. But you need to be able to decipher and discern, is this person only telling me the testimonials of 1% of his audience that's winning, and I'm buying into that 1%? Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're already delusional. And someone can sell you on the idea that you're going to make more money in the future if you make one more sacrifice. And I was the same. When I first started off, I bought a course for 5,000 USD. I borrowed that money off my sister to do that. And that business failed. When I first started off, it was off affiliate marketing. I don't know if you guys remember, about 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago, affiliate marketing was big. You're seeing these massive sites, whether it's your VPN sites, whether it's your tech sites. And I thought to myself, I want to build something like that, and I'm willing to make the sacrifice that it demands of me. I was consuming SEO, I was learning. I bought this course, I implemented everything, and then I employed 2 people to write the SEO articles, because this is what these gurus were telling you. You train people, you employ them, they write the articles, and before I knew it, 18 months later, I was about 25 grand down, and I had made nothing. So imagine you're at this point in your life, you're thinking, I'm going to make all this money, and you don't make all that money. And I want to ask you, what happens then? Like, what do you do as an entrepreneur, right? Because the idea that you're going to make this money and live this lifestyle has been able to drive you so far into this journey of pursuing what you believe It's an idea that you want for your life. And like myself, alongside my journey, and this is just something that I would like to share with you because you might experience it or you might not experience it. But I lost a lot of great relationships alongside my journey of entrepreneurship because I was emotionally unstable. Because that's what entrepreneurship will expose. You know, it's your lack of discipline. When I first started off, everything was great, but when I ran out of my runway that I anticipated that I would taste success in the first time I started off, man, I was absolutely cooked. I was absolutely cooked. The first time I took that full leap, not to have a 9 to 5, but to go all in, I lost great relationships. I started losing hair. I couldn't even leave my bed at some point because I was so stressed. Not because I was physically ill, but because of the anxiety of having to figure out where I'm going to pay my bills. The idea of I don't have enough money to cover my expenses. I didn't know what my life would look like. And I'm sharing you this idea of entrepreneurship because you only hear the stories of the champions. You only hear the stories of the winners. And what changed everything for me was saying, screw motivation. This is the lifestyle I want, regardless of the uncertainty that comes with it. I am here 100%. And when you meet those entrepreneurs that say to themselves, no matter what happens, this is what I'm going to do. You tell them that you know that you're fighting against a dead man walking. And for me, alongside my entrepreneurial journey, the reason why I was able to say I don't care what happens to me along this journey was because I already lost something super important in my life. I lost my mom at 18. You know, I saw my mom pass in front of me, which for a lot of guys out there, that's your biggest motivation. This was the first time I saw my dad, you know, fall down. And this is an African man that I've never seen him shed any tears in my entire life. And he's the woman that he has been married with for over 24 years, you know, is pronounced dead. And you have to ask yourself at that point, what is there to live for at this point, man? You know, so when I was able to overcome all these different trials and tribulations in my own life, when I started entrepreneurship, I just saw it as a rite of passage, you know, because I had to learn to be patient. I had to kill my ego. I had to understand emotional control. I had to understand I had insecurities that entrepreneurship will expose. And I'm trying to share with you guys today that you should not romanticize this entrepreneurship journey because it is nothing like the gurus have told you. I'm just a random guy on YouTube right now sharing with you the unfiltered truth of what most people don't tell you. You think you're escaping the 9 to 5, and reality is this is a 24-hour grind, man. You're in this journey right now, which will morph you into someone that you only dreamed of, but you have to be willing to pay the price. When I started off, I had a mentor called Bill Howroyd. You can search him up on Google. He's one of the wealthiest men in England. And the way I was able to, you know, get close to this guy was because I grew up in a neighborhood in a place called Oldham, right? And he was the chairman of the local youth zone. This guy, a massive philanthropist. And I had the opportunity one time to pay a visit to a man's house called Sir Norman Stoller. Another wealthy man worth over £500 million, right? And Sir Norman Stoller invited myself and this bunch of other kids from these youth zones because we were from the inner city, extremely poor areas in Manchester, England. And I remember going to the Lake District, and the first time I'm seeing what money is. And I had the opportunity to speak to Bill, and Bill, invested heavily into a company called AO. If you're in England, you know the company. Oh, let's go. He invested early into the seed round, and he knew the guys that started off there. And I remember approaching Bill when I was a very young teenager at this point. I said, I want to be in your position. And years later, when I first started on my journey, I called Bill and I said, hey, Bill, it's Boris. I don't know if you remember me, but I was that kid from X, Y, and Z. He said, yes, I remember you. How have you been? And I explained to him, this great idea that I had when I first started off my journey, right? And he says, do you know what? Come to my estate. Let's have a meeting. Let's have a sit down. And in my head, I'm thinking, man, I've made it, right? I've absolutely made it. This guy has so much money, he might invest into it. And it turns out he did not invest anything. And I was like, okay, cool. 3 months, 6 months goes by. I call Bill again. I'll send him an email and I'm like, Bill, hey, I would like to see if you'd be willing to invest into this company. And Bill doesn't invest, but he leaves me with the most important lesson I have ever learned, which has completely transformed how I view entrepreneurship. And it's more about discipline. He shares with me his story. So when he first started, he quits his job when he first starts off, right? Quits his job and he told me, Boris, for 2.5 years, I worked as a butcher whilst building this company. And it was I believe it was a food storage company that was based in Rochdale, England. And he tells me it was the worst time of my life, man. Like so much uncertainty, having anxiety attacks. And he's cutting meat one day just to be able to, pay his bills. He's going to the pub and people are saying, how's that business going? And as an entrepreneur, you might be experiencing that. And for me, when I heard that, he looked at me and said, if you're not willing to last 2.5 years eating shit, maybe this idea of entrepreneurship isn't for you. Because he was telling me that the idea of fast food entrepreneurship, the ability to go from point A to point B in no time, was an absolute lie. Because it also required a transformation of your inner man. It also required a transformation of yourself understanding patience and killing the ego. Imagine you're this entrepreneur that sold people a big dream of who you are and what you're going to do, and people see you cutting meat at the butcher's. I took that story as, Boris, if you're not willing to last 2.5 years eating shit, maybe entrepreneurship isn't for you. Because the timeline that you have for yourself, probably double it or maybe even triple it. Because you're writing your own story of entrepreneurship off the back of people that, that are anomalies. Well, Bill sold his company 10 years later when he started off for over 200 million, which in today's currency is about $500 million. But if he didn't eat shit for 2.5 years, he wouldn't be in that position. This man's house is an estate. The first time I went there, I'm looking around and I'm seeing acres. I'm saying, how is this possible? And when he told me the story of how he started off, I could only respect it. And I took it upon myself to also make sure I had a part-time job when I started, when I was 6-7 months into my own entrepreneurial journey. I had to kill my ego. My own part-time job was, I was working on doors. Here's a picture of me working on the doors and figuring things out because I needed that cash flow to be able to sustain myself. And the moral of the story is, take care of yourself so you can take care of your business. If you cannot feed yourself or keep going, your entrepreneurship journey is over. Entrepreneurship is all about survival. So stop romanticizing this journey and stop leading off motivation. Have discipline. Get that part-time job. on the weekends. You don't, you won't have a work-life balance like you've always heard. You're going to be working 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, on your journey, and Friday, Saturday, or possibly Sunday, on making sure you have enough fuel in the tank, money-wise, so you can keep going Monday to Friday, and eventually everything will work out. You have to know you're a constant student. You're someone that has to be willing to sacrifice for what they really want. You either pay the fee or you pay the fine. And today, in this very moment as you're watching this video, there's no greater moment for you to start. But you need the framework. And this is what this channel is all about. It's to share with you the advice and the lessons I have learned. And that your own experience throughout your whole life is an amalgamation to bring you to this time and position to watch this video. Because it's not by accident that you're watching this video. You've been through your own hardship. And as you go through your own entrepreneurial journey, don't expect it to be roses. But it requires a transformation. And the hardship that you've gone through, that will support you to go through the hardship that it comes with entrepreneurship. I was speaking with my uncle, and he's a lecturer of entrepreneurship at the University of York. And we were having a discussion over the weekend because, he meets so many young entrepreneurs, man. And I meet a lot of artists, when I go out there and I'm speaking to people. And we realize entrepreneurs are like artists. They're very emotional about the idea, because you have to have that level of emotional investment to believe you're going to change the world or the trajectory of your life. But what I want to leave you with today is, maybe don't, move like you're an artist. Have the passion like you're an artist, but put the systems like you're a scientist. You need frameworks. You need things that will support you along your journey. You don't need to leave that girl. You don't need to completely stop working. You don't need to isolate yourself from your friends. Find your tribe. Find your tribe. Find new friends that will support you. Find a way to still enjoy, whether even it's a day out of the week. Because that's so important. Because remember, this journey is not just sacrificing for a week or 3 months. You don't know if you're going to be sacrificing for a year. And when you do reach that point that you want people around you that you can laugh and celebrate the journey with. Not look around and say, you're all lonely. We always hear it. It's lonely at the top. One of my favorite musicians called Ashake, he has a song called Lonely at the Top, right? And we hear it from entrepreneurs all the time. That is, it's lonely at the top. But it doesn't always have to be if you curate the right experience that you want. If you're able to curate the people around you, your lifestyle around you, you can still do all these things. So forget motivation. Put frameworks in place, put systems in place that will allow you to win regardless, because entrepreneurship is a game of survival and endurance. I hope this video helped you. And if you find this video quite helpful, I want to give you a gift. Most people, when they're starting off the entrepreneurial journey, they don't know if they're ready to take that leap. Well, I've created a program called the Entrepreneurial Infrastructure Readiness Assessment. It's linked below. Take this assessment. It's about 23 questions. It will tell you exactly the places where you need to improve on before taking that massive leap. Whether it's your financial runway, your emotional discipline, your idea, or your go-to-market strategy, is completely for free. Go click the link below. Many people all around the world has found this resource very, very useful, and I want to give that to you. So click the link below, check it out, let me know, connect with me, and I would love to understand where you guys are in your journey if you found this video useful.